Good evening, everybody. This is the regular meeting for USD 453 from August. And before I do the roll call, I'd just like to say Happy New Year and school year to the staff, the students, the parents, and the board. With that, we'll have the roll call. Mrs. Reed. Oh, Mrs. Wilson.
Here.
Mrs. Overby.
Here.
Mrs. Murphy.
Here.
Mrs. Wells.
Here.
And I think Mrs. Price is here.
Here.
And I'm Mike Karn. Stand for pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll move to the district mission statement.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. Just my monthly reminder, speak clearly into that microphone, please, and thank you on behalf of Mr. Sifford. The mission of the Leavenworth Public Schools is to prepare every student for success in every classroom every day.
Thank you. Next,
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda. Or are we gonna do
no,
input?
we got something else first, right? Schedule pitch and input. Okay, I just want to make a point real quick. The board appreciates patrons taking time to talk to us about our policies and procedures. We set aside this time every meeting to hear from the public. Your comments should be directed toward board policy or procedure or administrators established to carry out this policy. This is not an appropriate time or place for patrons to make comments of a personal nature about any district employee or student. Persons making comments which violate the privacy rights of district employees will be asked to terminate their remarks. If a patron or parent has a concern with one or more employees, the board will refer that person to the appropriate employee or the superintendent. If the board refers your concern to an administrator for investigation, the board will hear about it in a future meeting, and you can expect the superintendent or another district employee to make arrangements to meet with you at the appropriate time. So first up, Mr. Is it pronounced Altice? Altice? Okay, come on up. You have 3 minutes,
So good evening. My name is Josh Altice. And my son attends Leavenworth High School. I live at 609 Topeka Avenue, and I would like to address the board in reference to the bus location pickup and the enrollment process. We live 2.4 miles away from the high school. This is 0.1 miles or 528 feet inside the 2.5 miles that allows for bus transportation. Because of this last year, I was told my son was placed on a waiting list and they would start looking for routes on or around the 11th of September. And if it was determined that they could support, space would be made. I used hours and hours of leave to ensure he was taken to and picked up while waiting for this determination. I had to rearrange meetings and readjust my work schedule, and it wasn't until the 18th of September that a seat was made available, weeks after the start of school. Now this year, because I haven't heard anything about enrollment, I emailed and asked when re-enrollment would start, and I was told bus enrollment would reopen on August 15th. This is 2 days after the start of school. How long will it be until I know if a seat is made available this year? And I am being told that there's going to be a fee for this service if space is made to accommodate this request. He cannot ride a bike because he carries a heavy backpack due to no lockers, and he carries a trombone. It is unsafe carrying these alone, but in the rain, lightning, ice, snow, or extreme heat, it becomes a greater safety hazard. If he were to walk, it would take him 47 minutes one way. And again, this doesn't take into account for severe weather. So 2 parts. One, can nothing be done to move the pickup location closer to the school? He doesn't live just down the block from the school. We live right down the street from the Casey's on 20th Street. And 2, can enrollment start before school starts and everyone requesting transportation outside of or inside the pickup radius be made aware of prior to the start of school if they'll have a seat or not? Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Okay, now we can adopt the agenda. If somebody wants
I'd like
to.
to make a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll second it.
A motion to adopt the agenda by Mrs. Murphy, second by Mrs. Overby. All in favor? 7-0. Moving right along to an executive session, is that right?
Mr. President, I move we go into executive session to discuss the emergency operation plan pursuant to the exception under the Kansas Open Meetings Act, for school security matters to ensure the security of the school, its buildings, and/or its systems is not jeopardized, and that we return to open session in this room at 6:25. The board will invite Dr. Adams, Amy Sloan, and Board Attorney Robert Pingula into the meeting.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion to go into executive session by Mrs. Price. Who seconded it? Second by Mrs. Murphy. All in favor? Okay, let's leave your telephones here if you've got phones or laptops or whatever. Three? No. Oh, the second, the next executive session.
Item 3, going into executive session for non-elected personnel. Mr. President, I move we go into executive session to discuss non-elected personnel pursuant to the exception under the Kansas Open Meetings Act, in order to protect the privacy interests of the individuals we discussed, and that we return to open session in this room at 6:36. The board will invite Dr. Adams, Ms. Sloan, and Mr. Pingula.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Did you, Daniel?
Me.
Oh, okay. Motion to go into executive session by Mrs. Price, second by Mrs. Murphy. All in favor? Here we go. We got one, say 10 minutes. Okay, that's that one. Another one? Oh, no, number 4.
Okay, accept the,
Staff reports done.
Kyler requesting some action, please.
need a motion to accept.
I'd
the-
like to make a motion to accept the staffing report as presented.
Second.
Got a motion by Mrs. Wells to approve the staffing report as presented, seconded by Mrs. Murphy. All in favor?
Aye.
7-0. Where we at now? Check register?
Consent agenda.
Consent agenda.
Consent agenda. Item 6.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I would like to remove 5.04.
Fees.
Items 5 and 4.
I'll adjust the consent agenda, approving it with the removal of that.
I would like to remove, why are my numbers different?
Hmm?
Yeah, 5.7, is that what you said? I'm sorry. I'm looking at.
She's 504,
504,
which is
507.
all of them.
No, not all of them. I'm sorry. Just the IF policy. I would like a separate vote on that.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay, so I have district-wide fees becoming 6-1. I have one policy amendment, IF, becoming 6-2. Making sure I'm tracking correctly.
Any others? Okay. Make a motion to adopt the amended consent agenda.
Second.
got a motion by Mrs. Wells to adopt the amended agenda, or the not the amended,
Amended agenda.
amended consent report. Second by Mrs. Murphy. Right?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
7-0. Okay, what's the first one we're talking about?
Yep, so 6-1 now becomes consideration of 24-25 district-wide fees. Mr. Sifford, if you would, please place that attachment on the screen. Thank you. How can I help
So
you?
that driver education Let's see. Just trying to find it on there.
One before.
There we go. Thank you. I would take a zoom in myself. Thank you, Mr. Sifford.
It's supposed to be on.
All right. You mentioned driver's ed.
Yes, I was wanting to discuss that.
So it
There we go.
appears 200 in district and 275 if you are an out of district student.
So I know we had talked before about how we have quite a bit of money in that fund that we don't really have a specific flag used for. We talked about doing some fanciful things, but I didn't know if we had made any ground in doing any of those things. And if we hadn't, I was wondering if anybody would like to support maybe lowering that fee to help the families that are in that program this year. My ask was just $50 off of each, $50 less on in district, making it $150, and $50 less on out of district, making it $225, just to help the families that are directly in that program, since we have an excess of funds in that account at this time.
Beth, can you remind us what the balance of that fund is and then our costs for that each year? Like, do we gain money in that fund? Yes, ma'am.
Do we have instructors
We have
now?
one now, right? That's why we have
The
a
reason
huge waiting
I'm asking
list.
is because I know we had to go elsewhere because they just didn't have instructors.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that too next, because I think we're paying $40 an hour now, if I'm not mistaken. And so I didn't know what we were doing to try and generate the pool for that, see if we could,
Hire another
draw
driver.
interest
Yep.
advertising that specifically.
So I can speak to that a little bit. You do have one instructor, and the challenge here is that the student load probably necessitates more than one instructor.
Because we have 2 vehicles, right?
Yes, I do not believe the vehicles are necessarily the concern as much as it is the certified instructors. That is a 9-hour credential, and there is only one in-state, I believe possibly 2, because Fort Hays is adding it. Otherwise, you're looking at an out-of-state institution. So it is a credential that those individuals would have to obtain and be willing to obtain. So my question is what amount of incentive do we want to give? Does that make sense? Because that is not something that our teachers regularly go pursue.
Would we as a district cover the cost of the credential?
That is possible. That is an applicable expense.
Yeah, that would be.
And
fine.
other districts have done that.
I think we need to offer that as an incentive to be a future instructor, driving instructors. We pay for the credential.
Especially
Okay.
travel expenses.
Okay. Beth, I don't know do you have Fund 18 ready?
I do.
Thank you.
So July 1, 2024, our balance was $260,000. During the 23-24 school year, I would say we broke even. The balance did increase by $5,000. But to me, that is close to breaking even between revenue and expenditures for the year.
So with your permission, we can work with the HR team to create some informational flyers and or communication to our certified teachers to incentivize and or offer that reimbursement.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And how many spaces do we think we'd like to go for?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Beth, we're looking for a minimum of 2 FTE, possibly even 3. Is that accurate?
Yes, that would be correct.
Thank you.
Not that I don't want to reduce the fees for our families, but I think that I would like to see us incentivize getting additional instructors, get more students into the program if at all possible, and leave the fee where it is for now. Because I know we have a huge wait list and families that want on it all the
Amy
time.
got something to say.
If you allow us to do similar to what you did before, as far as a bonus for hard to fill, and if you allow us to do that for those positions, we could use those funds for that.
Absolutely.
That's all for me. Thank you.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Amy, what would you anticipate the bonus being?
What do you think?
Get back to you in the daily FOF.
Sure, thank you.
Do we need to approve that?
Sorry, yes, so I do need a motion, please, either with the amended pricing to driver's ed or as proposed, but either way, we are asking for board approval tonight.
I'd like to make a motion to approve 6.1, consideration of 2024-25 district-wide fees with the goal of setting a bonus and hiring additional instructors.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion on Ms. Murphy to, that was kind of a mouthful for me to repeat, but
6-1.
If you don't mind, I'm just making sure I understand you're proposing as presented, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
As
As
presented,
presented.
but with the
Hiring.
goal of some of
The
those
caveat.
leftover funds to be recruiting new instructors so we can handle the load.
Thank you.
you got that? A second by Ms. Overby. All in favor?
Aye.
7-0. Where does that put us now?
All right,
So
you're up.
item 6.2, policy IF consideration. Ryan, could you bring that up, please?
I can't see it.
I don't need a lot of discussion on this because I know we voted on it in February. I just, I don't want to vote for it. And I'm not raising my hand for that. So I just wanted it separated out so we can have a separate vote. I don't need a lot of discussion on it. It's already
Okay,
been voted on.
so to clarify, you moved it out so you don't want to have this policy at all, or you want to retain our current IF policy that we voted before? Just to clarify.
I don't,
Can we just go over the changes that
Sure.
these were, I believe, mostly
Ryan, I'm so sorry. Will you please bring up the red line
indents
version?
and
and my issue is not what's there, it's what's not there, if that makes sense. I wanted additional guardrails.
So quick orientation for everybody that's watching. Anything that is in red is an edit. So you'll see several formatting changes, which were mainly for spacing. And then new text is in red. Deleted text has a strike through. If you would please go to the next page. That'd be your new section. So you're saying you don't have concerns with that addition necessarily.
Right, I don't have a problem with what's on there. I just think I have a problem with what's not on there. I wanted additional clarification and guidelines.
would you want to give a little bit more information?
Well, we talked about this in February. I don't want to vote for this policy because it does not have sufficient guardrails against taxpayer-funded pornography and content about gender ideology to young children. And that's just a red line for me, and I don't want to put my name to it.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the IF policy as presented.
No second. Motion died, isn't it?
So the issue is if that one fails, we just retain our current policy
Right.
as written.
IF would stand with the status quo. That is accurate.
Okay.
Were there any others?
That was all of the removals.
That should be down to Mr. Zick, isn't it?
You're ready for number 7, Mr. President.
No.
It failed.
Just failed. Lucky number 7, I think, is up next.
All right, Mr. Zach, if you would kindly join us here at the dais. Many thanks for your presence tonight. I promise they don't bite.
Good to see you, Danny.
I suggested a rocking chair, but they,
Thanks for coming. While Mr. Zach is getting seated, I believe it was several of you that brought this to my attention individually and had an interest at some point, either throughout last school year, this summer, or otherwise, in exploring both our current policy as well as practices. Synonymously with that, I believe in the last 30 days, the Kansas State Board of Education charged the commissioner with the Blue Ribbon Task Force. I want to make sure I get the nomenclature right there. And so in collective conversation with board leadership, we thought it would be a good chance to collaborate with local Board of Education as well as State Board of Education on just what we believe is best for students moving forward. So Mr. Zek, thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here. The task force isn't put together yet, but each board member had the ability to, there's going to be superintendents, principals, teachers, students, parents, and the parents could be board members, local board members, 2 IT staff, 1 school-oriented, 1 business-oriented, and 2 Kansas legislators. And there'll probably be Zoom meetings once a week. We'll have more detail actually tomorrow in the meeting. So our goal will be to get input about everything. It's not just cell phones, because screen time on the computer is also a real problem in the schools. So it's going to be multifaceted, and it will be, I don't know, this is me speaking, I can't speak for the other 9 members, but I don't know, we may give guidance, but I don't know that we're going to try to tell you what your policy should be for the schools with cell phones and screen time. But screen time is a huge issue, not just with cell phone. So, and this is from a clinical psychologist, and she actually spoke to Shawnee Mission schools in 2015. So, and she'll be speaking probably to our task force, and it's all going to be Zoom meetings. And she hopefully is going to be able to speak to the whole board also, because it educationally it decreases in comprehension, long-term memory, grades, test scores, and an increase in student dissatisfaction. I mean, and she's still in practice in Overland Park. And behaviorally and morally, it increases cyberbullying, increased agitation and anger, increases in cheating and multitasking. And then mentally, increases in diagnosis for meds, ADHD, like behavior, easy sidetrack, decreased attention span. So we want to get all, this is me, I can't speak for everybody else. We want to get input from all sides, because there's people that want to ban cell phones. So are we going to take the liberty away from cell? I mean, I struggle just getting rid of cell phones. So I'm more about, because my district is 55 school districts, and I've been in 25 of them and been in 81 buildings. So discipline is a real issue, but even with the cell phones. So when I actually toured Leavenworth schools, at Warren Middle School, one teacher on the outside of her door, this is what you can do with a cell phone. So I walk in, and it was exactly what she said it was. But she wasn't afraid to call kids out, because I talked to her after class, and she was not afraid to call kids out. And that has been a real problem that I've seen in the buildings that I've been in. The atmosphere with screen time, I can go to one classroom and everybody's on the computer, the teacher and everything, no disrespect, but it's a totally different atmosphere when I go into a room. Not that they're not using computers, but they're not there all the time. And it's a whole different feeling. And and the reason I'm concerned about screen time, not just because of all this. So we had a presentation, a Zoom presentation from a professor from Stanford about AI. And so I'm old school, so I have to print everything off because I like to touch it and stuff. And on the back of his presentation, and nobody else printed it off, it had, this was actually written by a real person. So that concerns me. So we have, you have huge responsibility, in my opinion, about this thing that's coming up. Because cell phones are here. I mean, they're not really a phone, it's a communication device. And we all, based on me just sitting here watching tonight while you're in executive session, we all get on the phone, you know, instead of sitting here quietly or having communication with each other, or we're on the computer. And
This is not on.
I know you know. So it's interesting, and I'm not about to tell you what to do, but I would try to get as much input from everybody that you can, because I guess on the news today, that has someplace, and I haven't figured it out yet, that the state board is going to ban cell phones. No, that's not even close to being true. And so I'm starting to get emails from parents and teachers already, and they're both ways. They're both ways.
Question for you, Mr. Zek. So for the state board, when they talk to the panel and they've empowered them, do they give any timelines for like an interim report, or is it just a final recommendation?
Probably November, December.
For as an interim or as a final? As interim, as fine or final?
I'm sorry.
As interim feedback or a final recommendation?
Final.
Okay, thank you.
And one thing that I really push for, and I believe it's going to be where the public can watch those Zoom meetings, because I think that's really important that the public is see it. I'm not afraid to talk about anything, so I think it's really important. And you guys really have, it's huge. It's huge.
I'd like, when you talked to the clinical psychologist, you said, did they mention anything about it being an addiction?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yes.
Because that's my part on it.
Who's done it? It is. We all can get addicted to it.
But not 11 hours a day. I got a granddaughter, so my wife's tracking 11 hours a day.
I understand. You all can please give input. I'm not here to tell you what to do or anything like that. That's what you all were elected to do. I know what the majority of people in the district that I represent want. And by going into the buildings, people find out that you're not just what people say you are. And teachers are starting to talk. And, you know, we need more and more input from teachers. Not because there's a lot of good going on in the schools. Yeah, there's some craziness going on in the schools, but there's a lot of good going on in the schools. And 99% of the teachers really want to do what's best for the kids. But they have a lot of restrictions on them now. And I think me personally, I think that's a real problem. I think whatever policy you decide on, I think you need to make sure that the parents know what the repercussions are. I'm one of those ones that, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Parent, if your kid does this, this is exactly what's going to happen. We're going to put their nose in the corner, which you can't do chance. We're telling you up front what's gonna happen, rather than something happen and then all of a sudden everybody goes crazy. Well, your kid did that. Well, the teacher didn't know that.
I would agree with that, and I would also not want to, I mean, it's a hard problem, because you also don't want to make a policy that you are unable to enforce,
Exactly.
because that doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah,
It's
I would advise you too, not to just jump in and make a policy. Get as much feedback as you can. I think that's the smartest way. Because you want to hear the good and the bad and the ugly, because there is some ugly. And I've been in classrooms where there was a policy, because I asked those crazy questions, but then nobody enforces the policy. But the policy that is enforced, it's a whole different atmosphere. And I believe me, I don't know what's right. But I hate if a parent thinks it's okay for their kid, then that's a whole different problem. But if a parent thinks it's okay for their kid to have a cell phone, it's a struggle. It's a struggle. Actually, I believe this is just a fix, because it's a whole different world out there. I'm trying to say that very nicely. I think parents need to step up and be responsible for their kids.
I appreciate that you bring up the screen time also, because that's something I worry about, because there's a lot of screen time and we're starting really, really early.
And just so you know, parents, that I get calls, it's awesome though. So in some of the schools, the kids, when they take the computer home, the school changes the password so they can't get in. But then also, one parent, actually she's on board, her daughter figured out how to change it so she can do whatever she wants with that computer. Because kids are smart with technology. I'm not. I'm technology challenged. So, come on, people. Questions, answers. I don't have any answers.
Mr. Carney, didn't we have a more detailed phone policy in the classrooms several years ago?
Well, my wife taught in this district for 32 years, and what she did, she collected the phones when the kids came in, and that seemed to work, but still, it's,
It's getting everybody on the same page and being
well, if
consistent
you make it a
across the
policy,
board.
then that's what you're gonna have to do, but
And
But
that
I
can be
thought there
sticky if
was
you
a
have somebody fight you on that, because
policy
that's
years
property.
ago. And we moved away from it somewhat, because when they took the phones, there were some parents who were like, you can't take my kid's phone, I paid for it.
Yeah, when I worked at Lansing, they just stayed in the book bag, because similar to here, the book bags aren't in lockers, they're usually with the kids. So that seemed to be there was no struggle. You just got in trouble if it was out of your book bag. So
they're gonna search all the book bags when the kids come in the classroom? or-
no, even if it was in your pocket or on your person, you would get in trouble because it wasn't in your bag.
Oh,
So that was
If I can.
Yeah.
Your problem is similar to Mr. Zach's. He's got 285 districts under his jurisdiction. You've got 300 classrooms, right? You do have policy on the books now. I want to make sure that we know that. But there's probably different iterations of how that is carried out in
Right.
those individual classrooms.
Yeah.
Just like you're going to see different iterations of how it's carried out in your school districts, right?
Yeah, and I think if whatever policy you make, I would, again, never tell you what to do, but make sure that the administrators and teachers understand that you're going to back up whatever your policy is.
right.
I mean, that's really huge, that they feel comfortable that you all are going to back whatever your policy is. Because right now, no.
Well, it'd also be the teachers backing the policy. I mean, some teachers are
Yeah.
more lax than other teachers, for whatever reasons based on the class or the curriculum. But again, it goes falling toward consistency of accountability and punishment and all those other fun things nobody else likes to deal with.
I agree with you 100%, and that is part of the problem now, is we don't hold kids accountable. But we don't tell the parents ahead of time. And this isn't just Leavenworth, please don't misunderstand me again. This is me based out and seeing what's going on in the school. And we don't hold accountable. Kids know they can, having been one of those kids, I would do whatever I had to do to get away with something in school. I didn't care what the rule was. So, but then I had the consequences too. Damn, that paddle was tough. And my wife thinks I still need one. But you have a tough job, especially in today's world. You have a really tough job.
It's just gonna take time. We don't want to do anything cold turkey.
Yeah.
You know, that's the bad thing, because it's in an addiction, you know what happens. But that's my concern.
I'll be interested to see what the screen time study results, because I remember in the pediatrician's office here in town, one of them had a poster hanging in the hallway that said, 1 to 2 hours max in a total day. And so that was one of the things that I talked to TNL, our teaching and learning department, about a long time ago, and the answer at the end of the day was money. It's cheaper to have the kids on the screens versus a paper textbook. And I think that that's not an answer that I want to hear, right? And we're making decisions that we know aren't in the best interest of the student because it's cheaper. So I'll be interested to see how that comes back.
And we can't forget these.
Am I done?
These telephones.
Yeah. I made my.
No, I'm not running
No,
it.
I made my mistake. And it's hard. It's hard once you get used to it, and once you let them get used to it. That's.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Zach, I want to make sure I understood you correctly. I realize you're at the early onset of this Blue Ribbon Task Force, but if you're reading the tea leaves correctly, you think it would be guidance and or direction, but not an actual policy that would come out of that. Is that what I heard?
I think.
Yeah, I understand you're
Take 6 votes.
absolutely. There's a lot of conjecture, and I understand that.
I would hope that we make sure we have local control. Because every school district, especially in this district, every school district is completely different.
Sure.
I mean, you go here and then you go to Seneca or Sabetha, and it's completely different. 1,500 kids in each district, so that's completely different. I mean, and the smaller communities, you're going to have more parental involvement and that type of thing. So I think that's me. I want you all to have to make the decision.
Thank you.
Because I don't like the government telling you all what to do. Anything else?
So just on behalf of our administration, thank you for your time tonight. Thank you for your service to the state board. I would entertain any directives and or direction for our team if you want to give us that. I was asked to place this onto the agenda. I felt like it was something we had consensus on discussing, but if you want to see that go to the next step, I'm just asking for where you want to see that go.
Well, I think it's going to take a lot of discussion and parental involvement as well. So we'll just have to work that out.
I think talk to all kinds of students too. I think
Oh, yeah.
that's really important too.
Well, I've always wanted to have a student board.
There's a lot of good kids out there that give good input too.
Dr. Adams, did you have a recommendation of anything you were looking for?
Sure. So just thinking off the cuff here, you could have some type of stakeholder engagement, to his point, whether that be open listening sessions. We did that with staff last year. Obviously, you can continue to put it onto the docket for each month to make sure it stays front and center here at the dais. We could construct some form of an instrument for our parents, some form of a survey, right? And or to our students as well, the affected stakeholders. So those are just some initial things that are percolating. But I think if you're in this information gathering stage and or exploration stage, those would be some like early things to do. Does that make sense?
I would love to do a parent survey if it has support. I can't imagine a student survey coming back with, please.
Please take my cell phone.
Sure.
Yeah, that's 100%.
I don't want to see a screen all day. I mean, that'd be great. I just don't think we're gonna get that.
And I think from my perspective, any survey instrument, we would probably bring back to you first before we put that out there to the community. Make sure that it is asking what you want to make sure that you're obtaining. Does that make sense? So.
Also, I'm interested on this proposal here that was put forward to us today. How much of this is already in our existing policy?
This is our policy.
Okay, so basically, we have a pretty good policy with situational phone use, not to use the verbiage from masking, but situational phone use that, if the instructor says, hey, you got 5 minutes free time, use your phone. If you need to look this up, use your phone. Otherwise, the phones are down. It's just basically the holding the students accountable if they're not obeying the rule.
So maybe the policy isn't what needs fixed, it's the enforcement.
Yeah, to be clear, we did not propose anything tonight. It was only
No,
discussion.
that's what I'm saying. Well, that's why I was asking about
Yep.
this. Is this our current
That-
policy? And then if you look at this and read through it, it basically flat out says you're not using your phone during instructional time. So it's telling me over the last several years as we watch things escalate, it's not the fact that we have a poor policy. We have poor accountability and enforcement.
Sure.
But, okay. Please don't take this long.
I'm not gonna take it
So,
wrong.
but is it okay for them to be on their computer for 5 or 6 hours?
Well,
That's why I
and
say
that's,
this is, please,
right, but that's
I'm not
kind
being
of two different,
disrespectful.
that's kind of two different topics. If they're sitting there an hour and a half, like we are here at our board meeting and we are working, like you would work in your office. I understand the screen time is really bad and I would much rather have books. I think scores are better with books than they are with computers, and I took a lot of those classes in college myself. But right now, I think the main problem is the phone usage within the classroom that is maybe escalating some of those other issues when you were talking about anger or aggression or some of those other things. I'm not sure, and that's something we may need to find out from our instructors. How much time are each of our instructors requiring for their students to be on there? Because I know we ordered books. We just ordered history books. We approved those to pass. These are hard books the kids are supposed to access. Are we still forcing them to be back onto the Chromebook instead of actually holding their textbooks? And it would be interesting to know, we're buying books and we're buying Chromebooks. Which one are we actually using more? And then what was the purpose of if you're buying the books, then why are we relying so much on the technology? Besides to go home and maybe do some homework or pull the book up to finish the homework so they're not lugging it back and forth or losing it.
What classes are we actually issuing each student a physical book in currently?
Probably zero.
So I can't speak to every single class, but I can say if you remember back to all the textbooking options I put forward in the last 7 years, if it had a physical student component, we were buying at least class sets, if not 1-to-1 at the elementary level.
So I guess the question would be how much the classroom teachers are utilizing those versus the online option.
Or here's a third option. I mean, I'm not technology smart either. And, but I mean, I use both, right? Like why, I think something through maybe, teaching and learning or how we go forward. Like you may have the information, you may have the textbook on the screen, but are our kids writing on a piece of paper so they can remember things and they can learn, because it's hard as a parent even to keep track of your kids' stuff because it's all on the screen and they do the assignment and they hit send and you never saw it, you never see. So even trying to figure out what's going on in your kid's classroom is extremely difficult. But what if, I understand like going back to buying textbooks for every student. Well, we don't even let them have lockers. So how are they going to lug that around? But maybe more classwork and more homework needs to be actually done with paper and pen.
Yeah, that's what I was going
Or-
to say too. How much of the homework is actually required to be handwritten?
So just on screen time again. So I've been in classrooms that they're on the computer, but they're not on what the teacher's teaching on the computer.
Right.
They're on something else.
Yeah.
Kids, they're smart.
They bypass and get on that YouTube anyway.
Would you be able to talk to any? Do you know of any holes in our current cell phone policy? Anything that needs to be tightened up? Anything that's not being?
Sure. So you have the policy matters, and then of course you have the procedural, practical matters, right? On the policy side, the two concerns that I've had expressed are time in between classes, so think passing periods, as well as time at lunch, and whether or not you want to be fully restrictive from 8 o'clock until 3 o'clock, or if you want to allow these periods of time during the day in which I can go to my locker or wherever and be able to send a couple text messages and or do whatever else, right? Because there's been a lot of conversation about how quiet our cafeterias are. And are we ready to get back to loud cafeterias, right?
Yeah.
Meaning more of this and less of this.
So they're
right?
they're sort of missing the in-person social
Absolutely.
interaction because they're on the phone.
But that comes with the caveat then that means now a student will be unreachable, so to speak, from 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock, insofar that you don't use the school office phone and otherwise, right? And I think that I'm assuming that there is a level of comfort for our parents that like being able to contact their student anytime throughout the day if and when there is an issue. So there's a
Well,
balance there, right?
contacting your student, and there's always a way to contact your student through calling the school, through the office, like we all did our entire lives. I mean, we did manage to survive. I mean, it's a convenience and we're all addicted to it.
Yep.
But I sure would like to see that, more interaction face to face in the real physical world.
Thank you for that. So that's the policy side. So then to the procedural side, you've been in several classrooms. I know that we sometimes have 20, 22, 24 students. Even with the best set of eyes and the best set of eyes in the back of the teacher's head, you cannot have eyes on all students at all times. And it's real easy for me to go under the table, send a quick message and be right back up. Or I'm sure you've done this a time or two. You take your small screen and you embed it into your big screen. And now I'm able to watch whatever is on here, but it looks like I'm watching it, right? I mean, there's ways around it. And so procedurally, are we ready to take a big step in which those phones are fully sequestered, so to speak, so that there is not a lot of that subvert, so to speak, or overt type of things going on? Does that make sense? Good question.
And you see a lot of, all the bullying is done on the phone now.
Yeah.
So if that's happening in the classroom, some kid was off the deep end and they're taking an assessment, so the scores show that level is not very good. I mean, this picture is huge. It's huge. And that's why I say you guys have an extreme hard responsibility of what you're doing.
This may not be accurate, but trying to think both sides of the parental contact. If you have the other side of that and you have maybe an unhealthy home environment, that could be distraction you if you're getting those kind of distractions during the day instead of being able to focus on, your school environment during the day. So I don't know.
Well, getting back to
Some
the,
of the things we're doing in the classroom really does cause kids to not be focused on academic education. So that, again, you guys have a huge, because I've been, this was a second grade class. So they were doing their little half circle thing in the morning, and this isn't just in one. And they were sitting on the floor, teachers going through, this is the SEL thing, and so this one kid gets up and just went completely bonkers. And all the other kids were screwed up. So how is that good for learning? There's just so much you all have responsibility for. I mean, and I'm not trying to be mean or anything like that. It's just, and because I'll sit on the floor with those young kids, and all of a sudden I got 3 or 4 kids sitting on my lap. And they want to be touched and felt. I mean, not that I'm a dirty little man or anything. It's a kids really know if you care about them. They really know. So I mean, I appreciate what you all do. I mean, I agree with everything, but I appreciate what you do. Because it's so much bigger today than it was when I was on the local board.
Well, I just want to make one last comment, and then we need to move on, but how many people have gone to a restaurant, see the family sitting around the restaurant table and they're all on the phone? So, I mean, the parents, that's the big thing with our education system. The parents got to be on board with us.
I agree with
With that said,
you. You're done. Get out of here. Thank you for letting, and I'll come anytime, visit anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Zek.
Thank you.
I know where you live. Number 8, state assessment and building needs assessment review.
All right.
Do you need a microphone?
While we're getting situated there, this circles back to April or May. I can't remember which we presented the initial building needs assessments. So this now brings to focus the Kansas State assessment results. And as you know, required as part of recent legislation prior to the presentation of tonight's budget. So Mr. Bodensteiner, if you're ready, take it away.
Yes. So, as always, we want to orient you to really this is something that hits on all areas of the strategic plan as we talk about impacts of teaching and learning with our assessment results, our staffing decisions, finance and operations, certainly as this informs your budget decisions, and really student engagement, family, community involvement. So this is one of those that I think hits on every area as we discuss. But as Dr. Adams mentioned, this is that continuation of a conversation that really started last January when we tasked our principals to coordinate with their side councils as well as PTOs, building leadership teams, and in some cases their whole staff to gather the needs assessments based on the templates provided by the state. With that, we then came back in April, as you remember, and provided those packets for you that had all the needs assessment summaries as well as the State Department accountability reports. And our principals were open to questions, feedback, and thoughts from the board. We took some of that information. They made some tweaks, which I'll share specifically about goals related to state assessment results, and then come to you tonight to review that state assessment data and then let you use that as you see fit for your budgetary decisions. So first, a little background to reorient on state assessments, because I know it's not something we all live, breathe, and sleep every day. First, remember that this is given in grades 3 through 8 and 10 in English language arts and mathematics, and 5, 8, and 11 in science. There's also a project-based state assessment that's given in grades 4, 7, and 11, but kind of lives separately from the data we'll be reviewing today. Remember that the purpose of this is both for federal and state accountability measures, and we certainly follow all those participation elements from the state. As a matter of fact, our preliminary results had us about a 98-99% participation rate. So that's certainly something we're happy about, and due to the hard work of the staff and the kids. Remember with the test format, it is all computerized for the regular state assessment, and that includes multiple choice questions, drag and drops, other technology enhanced questions. So there is no paper pencil option when we talk state assessments. When you get your score reports, it's broken down into 4 levels. Starting with level 4 is the highest. The key word there would be an excellent ability. Then level 3, which is an effective ability. Level 2 being basic, and level 1 being a limited ability from the verbiage from the state. And this is something as they look at new assessments based on updated standards, that can certainly adjust. But for the data we're looking at today, that would be the phrasing of terminology. We talked a little bit in April about what that looks like when students get their score report. And this is all housed on a state parent portal that we push out each spring. And parents can also receive a printed copy if they would like from the office as well. So this is kind of the main screen that you see as a student if you get that report. Set up in a speedometer type fashion, with 300 being that cut score for every grade between levels 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So you can see in this case, the student scored a level 3 with that star at the top. And then on the speedometer, they scored a 326, which is towards the upper end of level 3. And then it shows you as compared to state averages, district averages, and school averages. So it's kind of the easy reference point that all students would receive as far as their state assessment report. And there's some other elements that gets more into the weeds, but I know we talked about the easeability of understanding in April. So I wanted to bring this to you just to show you again what that looks like. So first, we're going to break down English language arts. This section I'll go through a little bit slower just to orient you to the graphs. After that, the other sections are the same format, so we'll let you peruse those. And these are the same slides you saw in the board FYI 2 weeks ago. The only addition is we added some breaks to the sections, but outside of that, it's the same content and information. So first, this is English language arts from spring of 23. And we start with spring of 23 because that's the most recent officially published data that is out there, so to speak. This is what's on the building report cards and the district report card, as well as the accountability report. The new data, and we'll show you some preliminary data tonight, but the new data will get pushed out typically in October and November for the report cards, and then January for the accountability reports from the state. So to kind of orient you to what you're looking at, this is on the far left, you have district. Then ANS being Anthony, DBS being Brewer, HLS Henry, Leavenworth, RWIS being Warren Intermediate, RWMS being the middle school, LHS being the high school, and LVS being the virtual school, and then the state average. Your orange is level 1, yellow is level 2, green is level 3, blue is level 4. You might think, well, I don't see Nettie or Third Avenue. Remember that Nettie and Third Avenue is a program, not a school-coded building. So they get folded into the home buildings that they would be. So as you can see here, you can see that breakdown of averages throughout. And then we'll kind of dig into what that looks like at the grade level throughout as we go through. So this is that same data for English language arts of spring of 23, broken down by grade level. You can see that general improvement, especially as we go from 6th grade through 10th grade, how that level 1 goes down. That's, of course, the trend we want to see. And then level 3 and 4 is a little bit of waving there. But we want to see orange going down, of course, and the green and the blue going up as a general trend. So this is all spring of 23, just broken down by grade level. The next, and I know this is a lot of bars, but I show it to you as a board request in the past. These are all the subgroups that the state provides to us. So this is not Mr. Perry or Mr. Rodenstein are picking subgroups. This is us just taking what they give us and making a graph out of it. So I just include everything that they provide to us. Of course, as the board knows, some of our bigger subgroups are free and reduced lunch, our white students, as well as African-American and multiracial, as well as students with disabilities. But of course, all those have varying levels. Now, you might see or think about a subgroup, note that it's not included if it doesn't meet a certain threshold of number of students for privacy's sake. So you might see when we get to science, the subgroups are different. And that's because of the number of students that fell into the cohort. And that's all determined by the state. We just pull it out and make a graph for you. The next, again, even adding more bars, but I show this so you can see a visual trend. This is longitudinal. So this is looking at each building from spring of 21 to spring of 22 to spring of 23. So looking at more general trends throughout since reconfiguration, roughly. Since 2020 would be when we opened the intermediate center. So that's kind of our official data. Again, that's all on in a different format, but all on the building and district report cards, as well as the accountability reports. The next piece we wanted to highlight is the preliminary data. So I say this with the caveat that when it gets republished, it goes through an extra layer of vetting. So you might see some tweaks in what this looks like when it comes out publicly. But this is based on what was in our data validation window called AMOS in July. This first set of graphs is one that we put together custom each year. And you've seen this before if you've been on the board in previous presentations. What you see on the upper left is the differential between the state average and district average, just in terms of average score. So not about level 1, 2, 3, or 4, just the average score. Here's the state average, here's the district average, and what's happening there. So you can see for a number of years there, we had a positive trend of that getting closer to 0, which is what we want to see. The last 2 years, it's gone, it's creeped back in the direction we don't want to go. But keep in mind scale being, you're looking at -10 to -15. So you're talking a couple points. So it's not been a huge swing, but the trend is we want to see those bars smaller as you go left, actually. Then on the bottom right, it's the exact same idea broken down by grade. Positive trend, of course, we want to see is our 10th graders in English language arts being above the state average the last 2 years in terms of average scale score. So that's a positive credit to Mr. Vanek and the English language arts team at the high school. You can also see a positive trend there in terms of our 8th graders. If you look at the dark blue in 2018, the bar was bigger. We want to see that bar getting closer to 0. So positive trend in terms of the bar getting less, which is the trend we want to see in this case. Then this is the preliminary data again, broken down for spring of 2024. So this is our unpublished, unofficial data that again, you might see tweaks when it gets rolled out later in the fall. But we have district on the far left, followed by Anthony, Brewer, high school, intermediate, middle school, Leavenworth High School, and of course the virtual school as well. We don't have state averages since it's from that preliminary data set. So then we'll go through mathematics. It'll be the same format, look, and feel, starting with our spring of 23 official data, looking at the district all the way through to the state average on the far right. Keep in mind, of course, your number of students that test is much smaller at the virtual school as an example than it is at Leavenworth High School. So 1 or 2 students can make a big difference. Similar to what Mr. Zek was talking about Sabetha and Seneca, much smaller cohorts. So when you have that, 1 or 2 or 3 students can make a bigger change in what those percentages are. And again, for high school, that's just 10th graders. And then for Anthony, Brewer, and Henry, that would be your 3rd and 4th grade only. Intermediate is the whole building. Middle school is the whole building. And virtual would be 3 through 8. Here is that broken down by grade, regardless of building. And then broken down by those subgroups. Again, these are generally the same as ELA because almost all the students are the same in this. It's all 3 through 8 and 10. You'll see a little different when we get to science. And then this is that longitudinal graph here. So again, another positive looking at the high school there. You see that orange going down slightly. We, of course, want to see it go down even more, but you want to see orange going down and green and blue going up is the trend we're looking for within the data.
So the middle school on that slide is going in the wrong direction.
Middle school, it's kind of hovering a little bit if I'm looking at the right bars there from this angle. So you can see it's 62, 58, 60. So kind of a little up, down.
I was looking at the 65, 68, 69.
Intermediate,
Yeah.
yes. Yes. And of course, just another kind of intricacy within the data, since the world I get to live in is you're going to have a 50% change each year because your 6th graders go to 7th grade, your 4th graders come up. So there's always that, not exactly the same kids, obviously, but you're looking at general trends. Here's that same trend data again of just average score. Noting again, it's most recent on your far left for that upper left blue bar graph. And then your bottom is longitudinal across grades.
See, high school there, just a few points. I believe it was about 3 or 4 below that state average on average. And this is the preliminary data breaking down. Again, I would note for virtual school, that does also include our students who might have been long-term suspended, who are given the option to attend the virtual because they enroll in virtual. They then become a virtual school student. So that does impact that score data because that's all from this testing window is done in late March, early April. So just keep in mind that that cohort looks a little different than your traditional virtual school. Then shifting to science, so now we're talking grades 5, 8, and 11. This would be district average, 5th grade, which would be, of course, at Warren Intermediate, 8th grade at Warren Middle, and then 11th at the high school. This is spring 23 official data. So high school pretty much right on par with the state average as far as how these levels break down, and a few percent off at the other buildings. Then here's those cohorts. Again, those subgroups are looking different because with grades 5, 8, and 11, we have a smaller end count of total students. So we have less subgroups to pull from because we don't have as many that qualify. But this is all just pulled straight from the state data.
So Ryan, for the 11th grade, since 11th grade isn't a single cohort and they've got different disciplines, how do they test the 11th grade for science and which discipline are they looking
So
at?
they all 11th graders test regardless
Okay.
of what they're enrolled in as far as chemistry, biology, all those things. Similarly with the project and social studies, it's all 11th graders regardless of if they're taking government or anything else. So.
Okay, thank you.
And this is science, again, longitudinally. So you're seeing 2021, 2022, and 2023. See, pretty minor changes. Again, you have 100% changes in cohorts of kids here because kids don't stay 5th graders for 3 years or 8th grade or 11, but pretty consistent scores the last 3 years in science. And at the state level too, it stayed pretty consistent if you notice that. Then preliminary, this is again that same trend. Positive here is the blue is less on the left-hand side, which is 2024. So that's the trend we really want to see in all the data is that getting closer to that 0 or the average. And then lastly, this would be our preliminary data for each building. Again, 5th, 8th, and 11th. And again, virtual would just be 5th and 8th, and that's a pretty small total count. A couple additional recent data updates that we have in the data validation window I just wanted to highlight. First is chronic absenteeism. So remember that's been a bit of a focus across the state, country, and here in the district. So I just wanted to include that in 21-22, we're at 49%. We had about a 6% reduction last year in 22-23, and then just about a % reduction in the preliminary unofficial data from this past year. So that is a trend we certainly want to see continue. And that's, again, students missing school for 10% or more of days for any reason outside of a school activity. And then ACT, just as a brief highlight there, we had about a 1 point increase in average ACT scores based on all the ACT data that's in the system. So that's a good celebration for all of our teams there. One thing to note is we've talked about in the past, you have state contract testing, national testing. So when you see scores posted out there, a lot of times it's from what pool are they pulling from, and it can be a little confusing even for myself. But this is just pulling every score that we have in the ACT platform as of about 3 weeks ago. So positive update there with a point increase because when you think about ACT, it's only out of 36. So then the last piece we wanted to share is those goals. So after the board had the April 30 work session, there was the charge to develop CAP or database school improvement goals with academic achievement. So Ms. Potter and I kind of came up with a sentence stem for them to build from, and they could customize that as they saw fit. But they had autonomy working with their leadership teams to put that into place. Biggest, I'll just highlight notes. I won't read each goal for you, but Earl Lawson, note that that's FastBridge data because they don't give state assessments. So that's the highest level kind of data point that would make sense for that building. Your other buildings focus more on Kansas state assessments since that was the the charge from the board. Many chose a increasing level 3 and 4 in subject areas by 2%, being kind of their metric as a starting point. Richard Warren Campus High School, 3rd Avenue, and virtual. And 3rd Avenue, because of their structure, we know it's not a coded building, but they act in many ways like a school building. So Dr. Cross and her team have a little bit different structure in their goals based on their needs, but similar idea, all based on state assessment improvement, or in the case of Lawson, fast bridge improvement. And these are posted on their needs assessment documents that are posted on the website and the strategic plan dashboard. So if you go navigate to our website right now, they are already posted under About Our District and under Accountability Reports. And then there's also a section called Legislative Needs Assessment on the strategic plan dashboard. And that takes you to a folder that has all those pretty documents that you saw in the past with the updated goals being included. And obviously, the intent of this both is to meet a statutory requirement, but more importantly, for the board then to consider for budgetary decisions along with those top 5 lists we shared in April. With that, I'm open to any questions. And
I appreciate you giving us the documents beforehand so that we could look at that. It looked extremely similar, just with updated information from what you had already given us. So I liked that the format was the same. It was easy to see, and it was not,
Thank you.
It was
I
great.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
And as you know, I always want to give credit to our team, Mr. Perry, as well as Michaela Heath and Julie Roth. They do a great job of helping it look prettier, because that is not my skill set.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you so much.
Okay, moving on. Item 9, review the 24-25 budget for publications code 99. She's already up there.
Okay, good evening. So we're here to talk about budget this evening. Again, strategic plan graphic, and we're in the center pillar, finance and operations, as it touches across all areas of the strategic plan. Student enrollment, 10-year history. As you can see, in 21-22 was our most recent high mark of 3,615 students. Last year, our actual enrollment was 3,490. So that's a decline of 125 students from the 21-22 school year. So we are expecting a student decline to continue. That's what our enrollment projections that we've had done over the years show. Students are enrolling every day. So if you haven't enrolled your student, please do so. And September 2024 is the student count day. Our percentage of free and reduced students continues to remain around 60%. Sources of revenue. So the school district receives state revenue, federal revenue, and local revenue. Each area is based on our student count or demographic information. State revenues of $46 million is about 68%. Federal revenues of a little over $9 million is 14%, and local revenues of $12 million is 18% of where our revenues come from for the budget. ESSER dollars are included in federal revenues, so there will be a few ESSER dollars for the 24-25 budget. Local revenue, just a note, is interest from investment of idle funds, small gifts and grants or fees, and property tax from local taxpayers. Comparing our previous year expenditures that we budgeted and then what they actually came in at. So the budget is an estimate of revenue and expenditures. The budget is higher so that the school district operations can adjust to different needs during the school year. We published a 23-24 budget of around $79 million. We actually spent $63 million. So as state aid and federal aid receipts are lower than what we expected them to be, then we implement our fiscal responsibility and make adjustments so that the expenditures will be lower because of revenue being low. And that happens during the year. And as you can see, we have consistently done that over the last 10 years. Some Selected actual expenditures. There's 3 previous years of actual expenditures and the projected expenditure for the 24-25 budget. These totals are for all district funds included on the notice of hearing that will be published in the newspaper. The projected increases are shown both in dollars and percentages. From the building needs assessment, staffing is identified as a budget action, and that is why the largest expenditures in dollar amount increases in personnel salaries and health insurance. So our personnel salaries are, the budgeted is increasing just not quite $2.5 million, and health insurance is increasing $730,000. Busing is also increasing for operating costs, both for regular and special education transportation. The property insurance increase of 30.19% or $139,000. That was what was approved at the July board meeting. Utilities, that's just your operating increase for utilities, electricity, natural gas, and water for the school district buildings. Motor fuel, it's reflecting a 30% increase, but there was a decline last year from the prior year, so then the budget's coming back up. And then workers' comp is the 8% increase. So that's kind of where those projections are coming in. Bond refinance, we have not done a bond refinance in 23. The last one we did was in 2022. So this is not a change. Just to recap that in 2014-15, the mill rate was 19.77 mils for the bond and interest fund. And our projected mill rate for 24-25 is 14.244 mils. So we still have a bond refinance savings of a little over $9 million. Mill rates. So these are the previous year mill rates in the budget. The general fund is set at 20 mils by the state. Bond and interest fund is a factor of the debt service payments approved by the voters in the 2018 bond election. Capital outlay fund is set at 8 mils, and that was adopted by the Board of Education in January of 2019. Supplemental general fund is a factor of the 33% LOB percentage of the general fund, and that was adopted by the board in March of 24. So the school district maintains a steady mill rate for the community, and we're still hovering around 56 mils in total. This is the...
Go back to that slide.
Yes, sir.
So actually, the actual tax rate dropped
Yes, it's about 6 mils.
from 63 mils to 56.
Mm-hmm. That is correct. Okay. So from the county clerk, everyone received an exceeding revenue neutral tax rate notice. And the estimated tax rate reflected 56.634 mils, which is a 0.396 mil increase. So that's 20 mils for general fund, 8 mils for capital outlay, 14.39 mils for bond and interest, or supplemental general, and 14.244 mils for bond and interest. This slight mill increase allows the district to optimize resources for the 24-25 projected expenditures that we just reviewed. There is a estimated tax levy decrease. The general fund, which is the 20 mils, which unfortunately, the district is not going to capture that. That's a negative $455,000 decrease. The other capital outlay, bond and interest, and supplemental general fund is a tax increase of $222,000, which altogether is still a tax decrease of $233,000 for the 0.396 mil increase. Another option would be to be mill rate neutral. So this would be to decrease the capital outlay mill from 8 mils to 7.603 mils. And this would result in the capital outlay and bond and interest and supplemental general fund tax increase to be $95,000. So the total tax decrease would be $359,000. for mill rate neutral. And that's to be the same mill rates as 23-24. Revenue neutral tax rate. This would decrease the capital outlay from 8 mils to 5.757 mils. And that is the mill rate that the county provided to us as a revenue neutral tax rate. And that is a total tax decrease of $882,000. Just a recap of the capital outlay. We have a capital outlay plan that we review every year, and we review it during the year as we bring items to the board for purchase. And they review and align and prioritize with the strategic plan before we bring that to you. And some of the items are technology, security system updates, classroom furniture, roofing, project at the high school auditorium, Pioneer Stadium, and the sports complex, as well as maybe if we comes up available parking and land acquisition for expansion and improvements. But again, we review those things before we bring those to you. The capital outlay budget would be published at $15.3 million. And we would have to take all those items we just talked about and put them into the operations category or instruction category. And we talked about at the July board meeting that the property self-insurance for the wind and hail deductible at $5 million, emergency fund of $2.5 million for those things that happen that we don't expect, facility repair of buildings or replacement of equipment, that'd be around $2.6 million. Technology would be $938,000. Facility other repairs for deferred maintenance of $400,000. And if we would need an architect, we have $200,000 set aside for that. So that would leave $3.7 million for capital projects, other capital projects. The publication of the budget of $15.3 million is to set the district spending authority. So that is not my intention to say we're going to spend $15.3 million. That's just to set the budget authority. Capital outlay purchases that are more than $20,000 still come to the board for approval as previous years. So this is the Code 99 would be published in the paper. This is a grand total for expenditures by fund. Each fund is listed one time. The publication of the proposed budget expenditure sets the district spending authority, and this is a spending assessment. So the general fund and the supplemental general fund, those are our main operating expenditures. So the budget would be $30.8 million for general and $10.2 million for supplemental general. The special revenue funds are expenditures for the funds for that purpose only. So federal funds of around $5.9 million. This would also include the final ESSER expenditures that will occur in September. We also have at-risk at $6.9 million. There's the capital outlay at $15.3 million. And as you can see in prior years, we just spent a little over 2.4. And I would expect for expenditures to be closer to 3, leaving 12 million still for capital outlay fund for future and property insurance and emergencies. The expenditures include all the increases as previously shown. And the food service fund is a slight increase. And again, all students that choose to eat receive 1 free breakfast and 1 free lunch every day. Salary increases for all employees are in all these numbers, as well as utilities, the property insurance increase, health insurance, supplies, and contracted services. We also have special education that has an increase, and that's a demand for a service that could come up, as well as the salary increases in transportation. Contingency reserve is not a budgeted fund. We do have $1.9 million in contingency reserve fund. Textbook fund is also not a budgeted fund, but that is a spring textbook adoption that the board approves each spring. Bond and interest at $10.1 million is the larger bond principal payment that we're making this year. So that is why there's that increase. Again, it's a 0.396 mil increase from 23-24. It is a decrease in taxes levied of $233,000. If your home is appraised at $300,000, then your estimated annual property tax decrease for the school district is $66. The budget is higher so that we can, school district operations can adjust to different needs during the school year. Again, it's an estimate, and as things come in and change, we adjust to that. We also have to publish this chart for the revenue neutral tax rate. So that's just summary of what was on the prior page to this chart as well. This is a chart showing the property tax decrease based on value of different home valuations. So a $200,000 home for the school district would have an annual decrease of $71. See, one more. Yep. So we've talked about the building needs assessment review. That was done on April 30th. We did the state assessment review tonight. If you all approve to publish the budget tonight, then that will appear in the paper on August 15th. And it'll set the revenue neutral tax rate hearing for September 9th at 6 o'clock and set the budget hearing for September 9th at 6:05. And that is when the board would approve and adopt the budgets. And then I get to submit it to the county clerk, and we're off and going.
Any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Just got a motion.
Oh, motion. Yeah.
All right, Mr. President, I move the board set the 2023-2024 revenue neutral tax rate hearing on September 9th of 2024 at 6 p.m. Set the 2023-2024 budget hearing on September 9th, 2024 at 6:05 p.m., both at the central office, and approve publication of the notice of hearing 2023-2024 budget in the Leavenworth Times.
Ms. Judy, I apologize. It should have all been 24-25.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but that's what's written, but
Yeah,
I will
no,
amend it
that's-
saying 23-24. I'm reading as got it. Sorry.
Yeah. Did we have a second?
Second.
A motion to approve the budget, or not approve, but have the hearing, right?
Yeah, so tonight's action, to be
Publication of
clear,
the
is
29 of the
You're right.
99.
you're just setting the hearing dates and then
Right.
allowing
Publishing.
Beth to publish into the paper. The actual approvals would not be tonight.
Right. So,
Yeah, I seconded.
all in favor?
Aye.
What? 5-2. Oop. Next. Thank you. Beth. I still think we ought to buy our own buses. 10, transportation discussion. Well, I just mentioned that in there.
I
Thank-
feel like this needs a lot of discussion, and I would like a bathroom break.
One bio break?
One bio break, come back in what? How much?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. So
minutes.
8:02.
Okay,
Recess until 8:02.
8:02. Okay.
I'm okay. If you can't tell. And I'm freezing.
Yeah, I don't know if I can't take the stress. Yeah.
Okay. Where are we? Number 10. Transportation discussion.
All right, thank you, Mr. Carney. Again, this is a topic that I would say several of you brought to me individually and requested to be added to the agenda. I believe that you have had individual conversations with families and otherwise. So collectively wanted to bring that topic to the dais tonight and just have at least initial conversation, discussion, as well as request any formalized direction you have for our team.
One of
All
my
right.
questions before, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just say I'll open it up to the floor. So
One of my questions was what the cost would look like for the district to go from 2.5 to 2. And so I was just waiting on
so
that.
some type of a cost analysis. Okay.
I feel like we, as a board, have asked several times for an interest to see who is needing transportation and what those transportation needs are, and to be able to know what kind of costs we're looking at, not just projecting like all students, but because there's lots of students that live out in or within the district boundaries that don't need transportation. And we still have to hold those spots per state statute, right? If they live that far away for so long.
Sorry, I was writing.
Yep.
Yep. So per statute, we are required to provide services to those exceeding 2.5 miles. And I reference this term frequently, flagpole to front porch. So school of residence to their home residence, if that makes sense. Whether or not they choose to ride one day a week or one day a month is their prerogative, but we are required to provide those services. So to your quote of holding that seat, that is an accurate statement.
Yeah. And so I would still like to see like what needs there are, because I know like there are families that only live a couple of blocks away, but they have other children at home that they cannot get them. Or like one of my friends, they are disabled and cannot drive, and the other one works and is depending on their work schedule, they cannot transport their student to school, and they're too young to walk to school by themselves, even though it's that 3 blocks, because there's busy streets to cross. So we rely on each other and friends to help out in those circumstances, but not everybody has that support system and network. And we as a district are looking at, truancy and getting kids to school, and we are actively preventing our kids from coming to school by not having transportation. So we need to eliminate that barrier.
So you're just saying no.
Find out
No distance,
anybody.
just everybody transportation.
Back in the old days, I know we keep talking about that, but at Lawson was always my home school, and Will Stallwall was our person that coordinated the rides. Like we were talking about, like, we're less than 2 miles from our school, but this person can't get there on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday because mom has to work and can't get them there. So he would coordinate with other families that are also coming that way to be able to come and get it. I know we have our counselors, we have all of that. We just need somebody focused on getting our kids to school. So, yeah.
It would be interesting to know if that would vary, year to year. If it would be
I would
pretty,
assume.
that would be.
Okay. So as kids get older, then they could
Yeah.
get there, and
But
weather
you-
dependent, and
You-
So it'd
You're
be
gonna
like
have
an
to put a
annual decision.
limitation somewhere.
of course.
I mean, otherwise we'd be bringing every kid in Leavenworth.
Well,
To
I think,
school.
I
Well,
think
that's
what
not true.
Danielle is talking about
Yeah,
though
whatever.
is that networking with other families. That's
Right.
not necessarily a cost to the district. That's
Somebody
than a coordinator.
coordinating
right.
that.
That other than coordinating it.
Correct.
Which, I mean, I know a lot of families are doing that on their own, already.
So you're not proposing busing.
Not necessarily, because I mean,
Okay.
we've given buses like out to Woodland Village and over to Shenandoah, and those buses are unfilled. So we stopped those routes because they're not getting on the bus. So there was a need, but it's not enough of a need. So I would like to see what the need is.
So if we research what it would cost to possibly hire since you can't trust a volunteer, we love our volunteers. I'm not saying we can't trust our volunteers, but could be privacy information or whatever that they don't need to have their hands on. Could we research what it would be to get a transportation liaison officer position so that they could help coordinate those issues? I don't know if that's the appropriate name. That's just what shot into my
So that
head.
could potentially apply to, like the case earlier at the mic. There's anybody that had a need, regardless of income or.
Plus, are we doing the mileage as the crow flies, or are we actually using the road?
You're required to use the routes that the buses can legally drive.
Okay.
Well, I think it would be beneficial to find out also, like Vanessa was saying, about what it would cost to shrink that radius a little bit. Because, if you're sitting at there's not that much difference between 2.4 and 2.5,
Right.
you know, and,
I mean, it might be like 10 families that it would
Yeah.
assist if we did that. We have no idea.
and I would want to know that information also because the two things I don't want to happen is you expand transportation and it's not utilized, or you overshoot and due to budgetary constraints or, you know, we don't know what's coming down the pike, you don't want to offer something that you have to revoke.
Correct. So how can we find out what the need is? I mean, we've heard from individuals that have reached out with those needs, but,
Tell you another survey.
well, I mean,
Well, I'm just saying, I'm not being facetious. How else are you gonna do it?
how many other families have reached out to the bus service that we don't know about that their needs aren't being able to be met, or how, because we do contract that out. We don't have control over that. We only have control over what we do have control of.
So I believe I can get you a list of, how do I say this, requested but denied.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think I can get you
That
that.
would be a good start because
Okay.
that would give you a feel for how many people this is a problem for.
Not just the number, but where they're located. It's sort of like a heat map.
Mhm.
Within, 1 mile, 2 mile, mile and a half, whatever those radii are as they move out from the schools.
And
So-
if there's only like 10, 15 individuals that this may affect, this could be something where maybe a school van.
That's what I was thinking. If we have the vans.
If we
both of
have
those
the vans or, the budget for the driver and a van.
Sure.
Yeah, because we don't know, whether it makes sense to hire somebody
Right.
until we know how.
And that would,
Time-consuming.
could also fall underneath the transportation liaison officer.
Yep. So I think I can get you requested but denied. I also believe I can get you the, how do I put this, mileage bands.
Right.
So students that are within the respective bands of say 2.5 to 2, 2 to 1.5, whatever you want to disaggregate the data. But we would just simply pull residents and school. Does that make sense? And it would just be a simple delta.
Everybody less than 2.5 that requests it gets it.
I'm sorry. Was that a
If
question?
they-
Sorry.
If they live less than 2.5 miles away and they want busing, they get busing.
Are you saying that's your proposal or?
No, I'm just asking.
Oh, yeah.
what's-
No, I'm just thinking the data that I have readily available. So I can go to power. I can't, but
Or
I
I mean,
can
if they
assign
currently
it.
live more than 2.5, I think I
Mhm.
said that wrong.
Yep.
If they currently live more than 2.5 miles away, they don't get denied.
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That and special education insofar that it's a part of their
So we're
IEP.
just looking
Yep.
at everything from where we are now to like 0 to
Mhm.
try and see. Okay.
Yep. So I think I can get you the number of students in those bands. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
How
Okay.
strict are they on this 2.5? Is it 2.5 and 1/2 a foot? If they live 6 inches away from that 2.5 outside of it, are they getting busing? Or is it more closer to 2.5.1 miles?
Should be 2.500 by the GPS software. I'm looking to Beth. I don't know which one we use, but that is
Well,
it.
if it's 2.5, they gotta live outside the 2.5, right?
It is what the mileage check comes in at or the GPS software.
Okay.
It does not round.
Are you
So if
saying is
it's-
it 2.5 or above 2.5?
Right. that's what I'm
2.5
Five
miles and greater are
So
those that qualify.
2.5 is included, it just can't be less, 2.4.
asking. Okay, okay.
2.49 does not round up to 2.5.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the meanwhile, for some of these families that are struggling with this, okay, I'm thinking, what can be done without, I mean, I know there's privacy issues, but what if those families contacted their building principal and that went out in a newsletter, we have a student in this neighborhood that's looking for transportation, and somebody else from the school reads the newsletter, and I'm talking about like off the books, like you're connecting families without actually giving that personal information until unless they give that permission or whatever. If I were I'm not saying this right, but if I were a parent and I had a transportation issue, could I go to my building principal and say, I am having this issue, and that information be put out? We have a student in Wellington on the park subdivision that is in need of transportation.
Building-based carpool service.
Yes.
Mhm.
So my
School
concern.
Like connecting families with other families.
I would say go through the school counselor or social worker.
If the
Versus
school has a
council.
part in connecting like a volunteer base, I would be interested in hearing what the legal.
Right, because, background wise, just because they're in that school does not
I
necessarily
mean, if they get in a
mean
car
they-
accident.
Well, but you
would
wouldn't,
want them
but
to go
I'm
in that
picturing
car.
something where you
All
wouldn't
over
be
the
involved
place.
in that at all. You're not putting any information out except that we have a student in this area,
You're
and then
connecting
you're waiting
families
for
with
someone to
families at
respond to
point.
that.
then this one
And then
family
those two
might
can
have
get
a
connected.
volunteer that would not pass a background check, the volunteer to pick them up. That's
But
what-
if a parent's coordinating with another parent, similar to what you would do in your neighbor, with
Right.
your neighbor, then that's a choice that they're, that's a coordination that they're making. All you're doing is saying there's a need and hoping somebody responds to that need, and then you connect those people that can talk to each other and figure out what the arrangement would be, or if they're, it's not school sanctioned, I guess.
Robert, do you think that would make sense to look at the legal side of possibilities, or?
There's no.
Am I imagining
there's
things?
There's no, prohibition as far as lessening the radius if you want to.
Right.
Anything like that. There are potentially more liabilities for like day and accidents that we talked about, because it's us transporting the kids, and anything that there's injury and stuff like that, we have to look at our insurance and stuff like that. But that is a possibility to do, but there are those things, because now we're taking on that liability for those kids. So, if you are gonna do something like that, there's different.
What about the neighborhood outreach
Yeah,
side?
the neighborhood outreach, the way I would do it is, if you do that aspect of it, I would almost recommend if it was like PTA or something like that, teachers or like building to be able to go do that, to not us, almost like a.
Transportation co-op.
Exactly. You know what I mean? So that we're not taking on that liability.
But then I know,
If
like,
we're doing the organization of it, I have a lot of concerns on it, which I can share. Not only the vehicular safety
right,
versus who's insured, who's not
Right.
insured, what records
Right.
people may have, et
Right.
cetera, all those things that I'm concerned about if we are the ones that are doing the organization.
so if we go to staff, how would we work those guidelines? Because like I know right now, well, it's not in our district, but in other districts, for instance, whatever, someone might not want their 14-year-old girl riding home with their 22-year-old basketball coach or whatever. So how would we even structure that?
You'd have to create, you're talking about a whole different bunch of guidelines.
Yeah.
On that respect, some of it may be, we're getting into some analysis here, so
Yeah, okay.
I don't want to go too much, but there's a lot of things. The consideration could be, just taking things into consideration, could be things like, okay, who are the staff that are going to be willing to do it? Who's going to do it? Because obviously, if we're talking about teachers and stuff, we have negotiated agreement
Yeah.
issues and things like that. If it's non-certified staff, we're just looking at classified staff, what does that look like? Who's going to do it? What would the schedule be like? And then, what would the route be to see, for example, to your point, do we have mixed genders out? We have older male or female.
Or even,
younger male or
yeah.
female, regardless. What does that look like? Are we going to have two staff members for every car, just to always protect?
Right, it wouldn't, even if you had same sex, it could still be,
Exactly, but at least if there's two adults, is that something, there's.
Just
But
doesn't seem
that starts
doable.
to get even more complicated
Yeah.
than just another shrinking the bus route.
That's.
Because you've already got the bus driver and the bus monitor and
We're
the.
doing, the benefit of having Easton kind of do all the stuff is they're taking the
Yeah.
Uh-huh,
Anytime we're
for sure.
doing it, you're increasing liability. I'm sure Beth will tell you,
Insurance, yeah.
Because we will have to talk to our insurance company about those things before taking on a lot of risk.
But would,
Risk is gonna go up.
if we did the, hey, there's a student in this neighborhood and somebody responds to that and you just say, hey, you might want to talk to you.
I can tell you, I
And
can
then-
still worry about all that. I can come up,
Yeah.
remember, my job is to come up with every bad scenario possible.
So I wasn't totally off the mark.
You should have anxiety by now.
But I mean, who is the person that's requesting it? You connect to somebody and they say, well, the district connects you with it.
Yeah.
That person happens to
Yeah.
drive while intoxicated or have a bad record, or I can think of 500 different things that can happen. That's why I recommend, a preference for the district would be that we limit some of those discussions about how involved we are, where if it's a parent group that is run by a group of parents that are like, hey, look at this, I did this. Hey, everybody, let's start a Facebook or Instagram or what is out there anymore.
Yeah.
But a group that goes and we talk WhatsApp, that's the other one, the chat one, I'm thinking of. WhatsApp about like a group of, hey, who needs this and let's schedule it. If they're doing it, cool, man.
Okay.
And if we go and say,
Okay.
hey, here's, ways that you can work around that as a community, cool. I just would rather not be the ones to administer.
Community
that
driven.
for various-
Okay.
You know, I'm going to mention this again. I've said it before multiple times in one of these meetings. We're going to have to start putting the thumb screws to our legislators. They are the ones that set this 2.5. They're the ones that make up this budget and cut taxes, add taxes, everything else. And it's been forever and a day that we've been setting at 2.5. And if we start putting the thumb screws onto our legislators, maybe we can get them to drop it down to 2.0. At least start having them have a task force and somebody take up the championship of this, one of our legislators. I don't care if it's Senate, I don't care if it's House, I don't care if it's a partnership of setting down and getting a task force where they could figure out statewide what it would take to drop it down to the 2.0 or maybe more. Because that right there would alleviate, maybe not all the problems where 3 blocks is too far for one. I get that. But that would alleviate a lot of what we've had to even keep discussing year after year after year. And it seems like it falls on deaf ears. And I know I've put out feelers before, but it's kind of like, forget crickets, I'm getting cicadas. They make a lot of noise, but then nothing happens. So,
Well,
I know we can look at all these avenues and try and hope and plan and coordinate people and connect people with each other. But I think it's time to really, start talking a little bit more sternly to our legislators.
Well, and I wonder also if that, 2.5 or 2 or 1.5 or whatever, depending on the district or what the landscape is or how maybe that should be part of that legislative discussion or what, because we had, 2.5 miles, if you had a straight shot and a safe sidewalk or a bike route or something in one community. I mean, we have, in this community, there's a lot of places that they're not anywhere close to 2.5 miles out, but they don't have safe walking routes.
Right. And they don't have
Or,
walking bridges and things like that.
So I guess what I'm saying is that would be a good thing to add to that discussion, because I'm not sure that the hard and fast 2.5 miles, because the community doesn't look the same.
let's start with this, maybe. Get the administration and the bus contractor together and try to come up with a different grid where kids can walk a block or two to a designated bus stop. But I mean, getting all this external thing involved, I think can be a big problem. I think we just need to let administration and the bus company figure something out.
So what direction do we want to give Dr. Adams and the
Well, he
district?
said it right initially.
Yep. So I'm going to summarize what I think I heard.
Well,
You would like to see a cost analysis. You want to know what that's going to cost the bottom line. And I will tell you that's going to obviously be driven by the policy, right? So the lower you go, the more kids would qualify. Does that make sense? You also want to know from a needs assessment perspective, how many people really need this? And of course, need versus want, that's going to be nuanced here. So I'm going to need to think with our team on how exactly we assess. Does that make sense? And then the third thing was the cost of, I guess, what would be a 1.0 FTE for a transportation liaison. Title, of course, to be determined later. Did I miss anything? And then, oh, yep, sorry, one more. The list, sorry, of the requested but denied.
Yeah. Actually, I
Um,
think that's probably the first one.
That's number one. yeah.
Yep, and the caveat there is if they requested it, right? So there could very well, and I assume you all know this, people that are out there saying, hey, I needed it, but never actually put that request in. So we'll need to balance whether or not that number is fully accurate. And then I'm confident we can get the from the SIS the number of students that are in with each of those, half mile bands or mile bands, however you want to disaggregate the data.
Transportation grants, maybe explore if there's any out there. I know
Yeah.
sometimes there are to buy the buses, but I know we get our own buses. There's its own little liability animal on that as well.
Right. Yep, I can explore that. Nothing comes to mind right now because most of those, like you said, are for the actual.
Right, maybe maybe there's some kind of grant that would help to reduce the cost for those that would have to pay to get on it, that aren't getting on it because they can't afford to pay.
Sure.
And it's not cheap.
So I'm actually glad you brought that up. So I'm wrestling with how do we assess need and or want, right? Obviously, another survey instrument of some type is probably coming. I don't know.
Well,
Unless,
as soon as you start reducing the distance, everybody's going to want to get on board.
right. So
And that's
that,
what my feeling is.
it's that need
And then-
versus
then-
want,
then-
right?
Then that 2 million is going to be 3 million.
So in that need versus want quandary, is there a need to assess people's appetite for possibly paying for a portion of that? And do you want to entertain that at the same time?
Well, what I'm hearing from the community is that it's not even a matter of they're willing to pay for it, but they're still not allowed to use it. So it's not what is being requested right now. All of these people that have the denials, they're willing to pay for it. It's being denied because there's no space.
Okay, so that's the feedback you're getting.
Yes,
The appetite is there. I'm willing to pay for it, but
but
there
it needs
is
to happen.
there is no space.
Right.
They're being
They're
denied.
being denied.
But to your point, once you start surveying this, if how many people would need this if you shrunk it down, then it's like, oh, well, that would be a whole lot more convenient than what I'm doing right now.
Right.
And then it grows and, and so I see your point, about the cost, like, because you might have a different answer. If, you're going to pay X number of dollars for it. Oh, well, maybe I don't need it that bad.
Yeah, like think about this question. Would you like transportation services? Pretty easy to answer yes.
Yes.
Would you be willing to pay for transportation services for up to fill in the blank? That answer might change pretty quickly.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. You need to get with the bus company on that deal.
So it would be if they would provide transportation to those living less than 2.5, but those families have to pay for it.
Right.
Like-
Because I think that
already
that would
exists
change
right now.
Yeah, that would change my
There's
appetite as
just
a
no
parent,
space.
right?
But I mean, the space is because the bus isn't providing it for families that are willing to pay for it that live closer than 2.5.
Yeah, and part of this is our current policy. So our current policy is we're willing and able to do that insofar that there is space on those buses.
Yeah.
So if there is not space on those buses, meaning the first priority goes to those outside of 2.5, then it simply becomes whether or not the parent is willing to pay is no longer the issue. We are going to have to reserve that space. So
Okay.
this would be a shift in policy as well. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I'm glad you asked that.
Just trying to make sure, like,
Yep.
we're all on the same page.
There is
Yep.
also a lack of qualified bus drivers. So if anybody
Yeah.
would like to be a bus driver,
Yeah.
they need to apply.
So we're going to have to get with Easton Bus Company and find out what kind of, how they could support something like that,
If they could, yeah.
if
I
they
guess.
could.
Yep, I will warn you now, I guess,
We
forewarn
said
you.
that 3 times now. Let's move on. I think we could talk about this all night long. I think leave it up to you, give it the bus company, come up with a grid or whatever, and see if we can't do something about getting the kids a little closer. Didn't we at one time track how many kids walk to school? We still do that?
It's been years and years, probably 10 more years.
But I thought we knew a number of the kids
Yeah, we just
that
did-
walk to
that's
school.
what was a grant for, through the state. What was that called? Yeah.
Yeah. That's my suggestion.
All right, I got plenty of homework. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 11, consideration of classroom audio refresh. Who's got that?
Mr. Sifford, come on down.
Good evening. So we are here seeking approval to purchase 219 audio enhancement classroom audio systems. This will replace our old end-of-life systems at our high school and elementary school, and this will actually outfit our middle school, which currently has nothing right now. So this is the surround sound speakers in the classroom, a receiver and amp, and microphones for the teachers and students. So I went out to bid. They're both on contract. I got 2 back out of the 3. And we do recommend accepting the low bid in the amount of $370,869.45 from Bloom. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Just so the public knows, how
Mhm.
long has it been since we've upgraded our audio systems
It's
in our schools?
Going on 11 years. So I believe we did it when we did the bond in 09, we remodeled the schools. So it's been that long. And Warren Middle School's never had any classroom audio.
Are you having any issues with those 11-year-old ones?
Oh yeah. Yeah, they don't make them anymore, which is fun.
That's an issue.
And the microphones we had for the classrooms use a frequency that the FCC doesn't let us use anymore. So we currently don't have microphones either.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to approve the new audio refresh at $370,869.45 with Bloom.
Second.
Got a motion to approve the contract to approve, who is it again? Bloom? Oh, yeah, Bloom. The amount said, all in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All this, there's 2 pages of this, I guess. Oh, service center purchases, number 12. Oh, there's a service center guy.
Mr. Soga, take it away.
You got the floor.
So tonight I'm coming to you with our annual seed purchase. It's not a capital outlay. This is a general fund coming out of the ground supplies. Take any questions?
I just got a
Are we doing
comment.
each one?
I just got a comment. And I think he did a great job up at David Brewer. For that grass really looks good out there because a lot of the kids, I know they play football out there and they tore the heck out of it. And
Yeah, we have.
We usually save at least 1 pallet for redoing those activity fields.
All right, so for your grass seed, the Fiscue Bluegrass Mix, I'm gonna make a motion to approve the bid for site 1 for $21,968.64.
Second.
Ooh, how many?
Danielle can have it.
No, you can give it to Ms. Reed. It's good.
Okay, we got a motion by Mrs. Murphy, seconded by Mrs. Wells to approve the site 1 bid for 21.6. All in favor? Okay, there you go.
The next one is, we're looking at adding another activity van to our fleet. Right now, we have 4 at the high school, and special ed has 2 with a 3rd one on its way. Right now, if we have to take one out of commission, that hurts the high school or it hurts special ed. And so over the next 3 to 4 years, we'd like to add 1 every year. So we get a nice stockpile. We take the older ones and move them out to the lesser use, and the new ones for the everyday use.
And you've been getting a majority of our vehicles from the Shawnee Mission Ford dealership?
Yes, it's on a state contract.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consideration to purchase the activities vehicle from Shawnee Mission Ford for $64,844.
Second.
A motion by Mrs. Reed to approve the contract with Ford Transit System, seconded by Mrs. Overby. All in favor?
Aye.
7-0. Next, you got another one, don't you?
I got another one. So this one is replacing our custodial truck. It's an '08. It's getting up there in years and mileage, so it's costing us more than it's probably worth. So we'd like to replace that one with a brand new one. This one we put out to bid with Dodges because they are going to be lower than the state contract from Shawnee Mission Ford.
Okay, I brought this up before and I've already told Dr. Adams about it. I still think instead of going to Purple Wave, we give local contractors a chance to bid on it because there may be some low-end contractors that want to buy one of these and fix it up themselves rather than, and that's a taxpayer thing. We all hear about taking care of our taxpayers. I think some of the local construction might appreciate that.
Local contractors can use Purple Wave. It's open to anybody
So why go to it though?
because it's a wide platform people
No,
can access.
give the local contractors first shot at
Okay.
the truck before they go to Purple Wave. That's all I'm saying.
So, which vehicles will need more maintenance over the long run, the Fords or the Dodges?
I drive a Ford.
Fix or repair daily. That's what Ford means.
We've had pretty good luck with Fords, but I just want to go for something, save some money.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the bid from Main Street Dodge at $52,714.
Second.
A motion by Mrs. Murphy, second by
Reed.
Mrs. Reed. The purchase of the vehicle as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
7-0. Item 13. Oh, the closing of the meeting.
Would you like the dates read?
Huh?
Would you like the dates read?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Quickly.
You are 11 hours and counting from the first day with all students tomorrow. Yep.
Yeah.
So get ready for that. A week from tomorrow is the LHS open house beginning at 6:00 p.m. Just a reminder, the district will be closed on September 2nd in honor of Labor Day. A week later, on the 9th, we'll have a half day of building PD and a half day of PLC for our staff. That's also the night of the regular meeting for September. A week later, per conversation last month, that will be when our special board meeting is. And let's just call that a capital project work session. So any and all things related to capital projects, that again will be at the high school. And more information coming soon, but we'll have tours throughout the day, and then we'll also be able to do a collective tour that evening. October the 11th is a half day of PD. October the 14th is your regular board meeting, 6:00 here. 15th then, capstone of no school on Friday, October the 18th. That again is a preview of the next 2 months.
Perfect.
This that you gave us, who all received these?
I do not know the answer to that, so I'm going to look to whoever put these out here.
Magnets.
What's that? All elementary. Thank you, Mr. Potter.
And I know Warren Middle School had them available for parents. It's awesome. I think so.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that this is a great reminder of if you have it on the fridge and you can track the days that you're absent, like if you know you have planned doctor's appointments or vacation, things like that, so that it's a physical reminder right there on in front of you how many days you've missed for the school year.
Okay, we're down to board member comments. We'll start with Mrs. Murphy.
I want to say that it was a great day at Henry for all the first graders that were going to do their little tours, and learn how to be incorporated into bigger kids' school. And all the ones that I saw and talked to today are very excited for their full day tomorrow.
Well,
I am very much looking forward to this school year. I have had at least one student in our schools for the last 23 years, and this is my last year with my own personal student in a school, and it is bittersweet. I am looking forward to every single second of it. Convocation with the band playing before we walked in is just a small little dabble. There was probably 15 students there, and there are now over 90 students in our band. So please come out and check out football games and watch us. Watch the kids, not us. I'm just a groupie. And it's going to be a great, great, great year.
thank you. Ms. Reed?
I was also going to compliment Dr. Adams. Convocation was just wonderful. So I was super glad to just be able to be there and support our staff kicking off the year. So I hope everyone has a phenomenal year. And thank you again to Dr. Adams for your presentation.
Ms. Wilson?
I'm just saying the same thing. You had a great event and we all enjoyed it. So thanks for putting that on, and welcome to the new school year, and let's rock this thing, Pioneers.
Ms. Zilberby?
I'll just echo what everybody else said about the convocation. That was my first experience and it was fantastic. I think everybody's pumped up and ready to go, and time to go home and get to bed because we got an early start tomorrow.
I have a few things to say tonight. So convocation, I think, went great. It was a great start to the new year to get all of our teachers on board. But even more importantly, it was the new teacher academy the week prior. That was fantastic. And I want to give a shout out to our chamber and all of the vendors who came out to do that back to school bash to support our teachers and staff. If I didn't get out to you to say thank you, I apologize, but I tried my best to get to all the vendors. That was just a really great show of appreciation for our folks. Also with that, since back to school is tomorrow, for all drivers, whether you're new or old, that big yellow thing that carries some of our most precious cargo, please stop when you see the sign or the lights, because I still see people trying to pass school buses when those lights are out and flashing and the sign is out. Stop. Just stop. You see the big yellow bus. You can't miss it. There's a reason why it's big and yellow. Along with the new school year, we've got new sports seasons kicking out. So check your calendars. Get all the teams on your calendar. Would love to see you all out there supporting our kids because they're just amazing. An invite to all of my fellow board members on the 27th of August here in the boardroom at 9 o'clock. KASB will be coming through with the legislative committee to do their listening session. That's going to be a perfect time to come tell them we want that on the legislative work for KASB this semester or for this year as they go forward with the legislature. And it's going to be a great year. Thanks for being a pioneer.
I just have a couple things. I'm sorry I missed convocation. That's the first one I've missed in my time on the board. And I really feel bad, but I couldn't make it. The other thing is I'm going to be out at on the corner like I have for many, many years by Henry. That's my favorite spot to check traffic. And I'm sorry that we didn't get a big front page, big font about school starts the 13th. Slow down. You know, something simple that some people may be able to read because they can't read the speed limit. And thirdly, I just, yeah. And last but not least, I saw a quote yesterday that I just got to give everybody a little shout out to, and that's be curious, not judgmental. This meeting is adjourned.